Turn to notebook page 279. Notebook page 279. Take a moment and examine these key questions in lesson planning. This document is your most significant tool for analysis in helping the teacher assess whether or not they planned the lesson with a focus on student learning, as opposed to simply covering information or providing students with an activity to complete to pass the time. Another way of saying this is that if a teacher keeps the students busy, happy, and good during a lesson, that's not enough to say it was a successful lesson. The teacher also has to ensure that students learn something new that is important to the curriculum in every lesson they teach. Let's review the key questions in lesson planning together. Each of these key questions represent the level of planning and delivery of a lesson taught to students. However, if the teacher stops their planning at the coverage, activity, or involvement level, gaps in student learning will occur. Coverage. The key question at this level of lesson planning is, what knowledge, skill, or concept am I teaching? This is an important question for the teacher to ask during the lesson planning. Today I'm teaching Impressionism, or the preterite tense, or how to dribble a basketball. But what if that is the only question a teacher asks themselves when planning that lesson? What would that lesson look like? When a teacher is thinking about coverage, they are thinking only about their part in the lesson, not the student's part. They're going to present, describe, explain, demonstrate, or cover information. The focus is only on getting through everything without worrying about student learning. These types of lessons are typically dominated by teacher lecture. Activities. The key question at this level of lesson planning is, what activities could students do to gain understanding or develop these skills? This is another important question the teacher should ask themselves in the planning process. Today I'm going to have them research a website, or watch a YouTube clip, or build a model. However, what if the teacher stops their planning at that point after they ask themselves that question? The lesson could include activities for the students to do. However, there will be no way of knowing whether it supported student learning or not. The focus would only be on student participation and completion of the activities. At the end, assessment might look like whether students participated in and completed the activity, with no focus on student learning. Involvement. The key question at this level of lesson planning is, how can I get students really engaged? This is another important question that teachers should ask themselves in the planning process. Well, I'm going to use relevant examples, or I'm going to incorporate physical movement, and I'm going to figure out a way to accommodate for a variety of learning styles. However, what if the teacher stops their planning at that point after asking themselves that question? Activities assigned by the teacher would be because they were fun for kids, like word searches, and would be customized to ensure student success. However, these activities may not help students get smarter with standards-based knowledge or skills. The focus of success on that lesson will continue to be participation and completion of the activities, with no focus on student learning. Mastery objectives, criteria for success. Mastery objectives thinking is the level of lesson planning and delivery we want teachers to aim for in every lesson they teach. The key question at this level of lesson planning is, what do I want students to know or be able to do when the lesson is over, and how will I know if they learned it? A teacher might respond to those questions by saying, I want my students to be able to compare the life cycle of the butterfly with the life cycle of the frog by the end of this lesson. And I'll know they'll have been successful with that is if they complete a Venn diagram at the end of the lesson that includes at least 2 similarities and 2 differences between the life cycles. Those are the criteria for success for which I will measure student learning during this lesson. Now, this way of thinking starts with the formulation of a mastery objective that defines what students will know or be able to do when the lesson is over, to the creation of the assessment and aligned criteria for success. Now, with this end in mind, the teacher proceeds with planning the actual activities or deciding how best to involve all students within the lesson. The focus of the lesson is now on student learning, and the teacher can assess the success of the lesson based on how much students learned as opposed to whether they participated in or completed in an activity. Thinking skills objectives. This is another level of lesson planning delivery we want teachers to aim for when students are unfamiliar or new to a particular thinking skill they will have to use in order to be successful within a lesson. The key question: what thinking skills do I want students to be able to use? Compare and contrast, summarize, classify. If students don't know how to use those thinking skills, the teacher teaches those skills through direct instruction. Now, both mastery objectives and thinking skills objectives represent lesson planning and delivery that focus on beginning a lesson with the end in mind, which is very important in terms of ensuring student learning day in and day out. When teachers focus solely on the means, coverage, activities, and involvement as the focus of their lesson planning, serious gaps in student learning or no student learning may result from the lesson, even though students were busy, happy, and good throughout. Let's use the analogy of a road trip. Mastery objectives and thinking skill objectives are the destination and answer the questions: where are we? Where do we want to go? Those should be answered first before planning out the details of the trip: the route to take, stops along the way, possible alternate routes, and kinds of transportation to use. So in summary, we want teachers to plan each and every lesson with the ends in mind, planning and delivering lesson with a focus on student mastery of content or skills, and then use the means, coverage, activities, and involvement to support students in that new learning.